So basically the beginning motivation of this is that I've observed that there's a lot of patches and refactors that get stalled for a number of reasons. Is it a lack of motivation? I don't think so. Everyone really wants to improve the code base, so it probably isn't that. Disagreements on future work, yeah, it's valid, but that's a hard thing to solve, so it's not really my focus today. Is there no planning? Kind of. The wiki pages are quite outdated in some cases. That could be improved, but that's not what I'm here to talk about today. Maintainer bottlenecks, that's kind of where we're at, and we'll get to that. So we got some examples of stalled work. Like I said, the outdated wiki entries, we have the speed up areas, improvement projects, and the rearch page. It's not really clear where they stand. What can you do, right? There's lots of antique code in the project. Out-of-date practices and poor documentation really do hold us back in some of these areas. Some of them are really low-hanging fruit, so it's really strange why they don't get fixed. And then other general refactors, maybe switching a group of functions from 2 different functions into a overload instead. That's very possible. And then there's also deduplication of repetitive code. In my opinion, a lot of these are really low-hanging fruit. So, but is it really worth it? In my opinion, yes, because it will improve onboarding of new developers and improve maintainability. In a lot of cases, you can discover hidden bugs, which recently I was trying to remove tree chain and tree type from TreeVec, and I found it was being passed to some really strange routines. That's a fun one. So all these refactors can uncover these things. And it might improve large performance improvements, especially if we were able to get rid of tree chain in a lot of the decal nodes. That's the hope anyway. So the maintainer bottlenecks. There's lots of arguments against changes. You try to present a new change, and you get the same kind of arguments every time. Some of them are very valid. Changing working code does potentially introduces. That's not what I meant to put there. You can see I was very rushed at the end. But yes, that's what the test suite is supposed to be for, so maybe that shouldn't be a problem. Disagreements on style, yes, it's valid, but it's a discretion of maintainers. That's not something I can solve today. And then potential regressions in compiler performance, that's valid, and I think it's very actionable, and that's where I'm going to focus. So what's the solution? Of course, we rewrite GCC and algol 68. Of course, not for sure, although it's very serious, as I'm sure you guys remember. Unfortunately, changing working code, potentially, I don't even remember what that last word was, but potentially introducing bugs, that's what that was supposed to be. That's not something we can really address easily. Disagreements on style, again, that requires discussions and consensus within the community. That's not something that I can easily change on my own, or any individual can easily change. But maybe we can address the potential regressions in compiler performance. It is valid, it does need to be taken seriously, so we need a tool to quantify this. What do we actually need to quantify, though? The length of time for the compiler to be compiled, obviously very important for the developer workflow. If you slow that down, it gets very, very tedious to make changes. It's not always a big problem if you're not changing headers, obviously, but it gets very bad. And then the runtime performance of the compiler, that matters both to us for debugging and to the end user for speed and memory use. It affects what systems can use our compiler. And performance of debugging the compiler. This is a little more difficult, and I haven't totally figured out a solution to this yet, but it is something that we should look at. What is out of scope, though? Performance of compiler code, we already have plenty of benchmarks for these. They're all over the place. It's not a significant problem at this point in time, and it's not something that I seek to solve. And constant integration, if you consider that out of scope, then you can add extra features, extra granularity that will help programmers and maintainers narrow down and identify different areas of those issues. You start adding on features to support constant integration, it gets a little bloated and it's difficult. So the goals would be ease of use. You should make developing a refactoring patch less daunting. It shouldn't be very difficult to actually measure, and maintainers should be able to tell someone if they post a new patch that has, it's a refactor. They should be able to say, oh, go to this wiki page, here's this tool, here's how to use it, or even better, it could be in the tree and be a core part of our workflow, but that's a lot more work. I'm not really prepared to propose that today, but maybe in the future. We also need the deltas to be easy to evaluate with little effort, both for the developers to see the cost of their patch so they can decide before they even submit it if it's a worthwhile change. Because I'm sure I've developed a patch and I think, oh wow, this is a really cool abstraction and it makes things so much cooler, and then you go and you run it and you go, huh, it's that's noticeably slower. Maybe I don't want to propose this. But then you also need the maintainers to be able to see it as well, to remove burden from them, because as we know, maintainers have a lot of burden right now. We've had talks throughout the weekend that do trying to address that. And I don't want to make their job harder. I want to make it easier. So we do have a lot of existing work in this area already. There is the performance testing page on the wiki that has those scripts. There's some issues with them. I haven't tested them extensively yet, though I didn't have time. But they might be out of date, maybe not. It's kind of an asterisk on that. But the bigger problem is that it relies on non-open source projects like the spec benchmark. And that's very inaccessible for many developers. And you can't just tell someone, OK, go use this, download the spec benchmark for $500 or whatever it is. That's not really an option for us, I think. There's the SUSE CI, and that's very cool. I'm a big fan of it. But it's not really available to developers, and it does use spec as well, as far as I can tell. So that's not a solution here either. And then there's the LLVM compile time tracker, which does not support GCC, but as I understand, the maintainer of that project does work at Red Hat, if I remember correctly. It's Nikita, if I remember correctly. It is very cool, and from what I understand, it's caught problems in LLVM in the past, like when Intel tried to add a ton of registers to the compiler. And it kind of came down to a particular algorithm in it. Was linear, I believe, and they added like 100, so it was like a big slowdown. It was a big blip on there. It caught it. So that is to say that CI pipelines are important, but again, not my goal today. The benchmarking tool. This is where I ran out of time. I thought I had something on the laptop. I must have left it at home, though. I wanted to show a nice comparison of the output of the comparison, because that's, like I said, that's very important. We need it to be easy to read. We need to be able to identify where the changes are, and we need it to be easy to use. So that interface is very important. So what next? Now we have our benchmarking tool. What are we going to do? And that's where I invite you guys all to my BOF afterwards. Did I zip through this? No, I've got 10 minutes left. OK, great, perfect. To my BOF after lunch, where we can start tackling the other issues of style, of where our work should be focused at. Because ultimately, those are harder problems. It requires discussion in a group. While with a benchmark tool, we can just have that information, and we can start quantifying it, and we can start talking about whether a slowdown is big enough or small enough that it's not a big deal. Because abstraction can be very, very nice, but unless the slowdown is small enough, we can't really accept that. So the first step is quantifying, and then we can start thinking about what we actually do. Thank you, everyone. I'd like to thank David Malcolm. I would have a list of everyone on here. David Malcolm, Jason Merrill, everyone else who I might have forgotten who's contributed to this. Andrew Pinsky, of course. I do have to put your patch into the BOF still. I'm going to be rushing through that through lunch. So, thank you very much. I'll be taking questions and whatever now. probably talked a little too fast. I think that was about 10 minutes.
So I happen to have access to the LVM compile time tracker. It is open to developers if you ask nicely. The infrastructure is in fact readily available. You can just download it.
The
base
for the source code or to add GCC to it for CI?
Well,
Because I know the source code's available. I've taken a look at it.
So you could fork it and adapt it for GCC and binutils.
I did look at it. I felt like it's a very cool project, of course, but it's a little difficult to use for an individual from what I saw. But of course, I don't know PHP very well, so it's a little hard to read.
The way how it is set up is that there is a dedicated CI, dedicated machine, dedicated environment, so that all those variables are controlled.
Okay.
And that looks for changes in the main LLVM branch and in specific branches of developers who have asked access. And when a new branch is added, it will measure every single commit.
Yes.
And there will be some noise, that's expected, but it does give you an idea on the effect of your individual commits in that particular situation, and that is very helpful to identify what is faster or slower.
I'm glad you brought that up because I'm realizing now that I really forgot to mention that I did take a close look at what it was measuring as inspiration for my tool and looked at how it was doing it. So I did use it as a lot of inspiration. It's a very cool tool. The only thing is that I don't think the user interface is accessible enough. At least I couldn't figure it out anyway. What my goal with this tool is really to be before it goes upstream so that maintainers don't have to heavily scrutinize patches for their performance impacts because the developer has already done it and already looked at it and already evaluated it. And that tool, at least from what I saw, it's not as suited for that.
Well, on one hand, it is suited to track things after the fact.
Absolutely.
Which is mandatory, and it also helps for those developers who are doing larger changes to identify if there is any regression that they are introducing.
Yes, and it's very important that I would like to see GCC added to that tracker as well, a GCC compile time tracker. And of course, SUSE already has theirs that tracks GCC, and that's very nice and helpful. But having more sources is always good.
So yeah, I think you just need to identify the repositories you want to track, set up CI.
Yes, for sure. I would just have to talk to Nikita about that, I think. Because am I remembering who was running it correctly?
Yeah, it's Nikita.
Okay, it is Nikita? Okay, great. Yep. I wasn't sure if I was remembering wrong. Okay, cool. And yes, that is something I would like to do, for sure. Just in addition to this work.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, there used to be a lot more compile time tracking back in before probably 2010.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
then just things just kind of stopped. I don't know the reasoning how it stopped or why. It just kind of like fell over, and even tracking performance in general kind of, SUSE's the only one that left on tracking it now.
I've definitely observed that, especially on the wiki. It feels like 2015, everything's like starts at 2010, and by 2015, everything starts to get outdated. That's where the history ends, more or less.
Yeah, and obviously, I think this needs to be more of a community thing rather than rather than like a one company specific
Yes.
to keep tracking, because as I said, before we had it on, a few companies would do it, but then didn't, but it just kind of fell over because those places kind of either moved to LVM or, the people moved on from that company to LVM or otherwise,
Yes. I think that's why it would be good if we got the, why am I blanking now? The LVM. If I remember, it is Red Hat that runs that, right? Or am I remembering right or wrong? Nikita? The LVM compile time tracker. It is Red, okay. Yeah,
I
so
think you said it was Red Hat, yeah.
I think I said so, but I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly.
Nikita, I
It
think
should
it's
be in my
Red Hat.
slides, but yeah, I think it would be good if we got GCC on there, so it's not just one source.
Well, I was thinking more
But also community,
community.
yes.
I was thinking more community driven.
It's just really expensive, right?
No, I don't disagree. I'm just saying this is something that, it needs to be. The reason why I say this is because, folks at Red Hat used to track compile time for performance before they left
Okay.
and everything. And
Well, clearly we have that for LLVM, so it's like, well, okay, I agree.
But
If the
you
community did it, it would be better.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it was an individual initiative, and an individual switches their focus.
Gotcha.
Then.
Yeah.
yeah, that's why I said it.
I'm just not volunteering, is what I really want to say.
Yeah, that's great. And another individual taking the initiative to drive stuff is great.
Thank you. Maybe I can expand as well since we have a little more time. Does anyone have any concerns about what's being measured? If there's any ideas there, if there's anything important that needs to be measured, because that's still something I'm really thinking about. I still don't know how to do debug performance. I have some ideas, like running a script that runs GDB and timing how long a particular evaluation of expression goes and make sure that doesn't fall off a cliff at some point. That's one idea. But I do think debug performance is still very, very important. And also, benchmarking tasks on a debug-enabled compiler, yes.
The GDB folks.
Not about the, yes, about the Expert thing. Pedro did mention that the one slowdown that I was experiencing might actually be fixed now. So I have to, once I get home, I have to go try that.
That's the other side. So
That's true.
the other side is, do we want to track GDB performance in this matrix or stay with a static version of GDB?
That's a good question.
I
end of
think it's both.
Yes. At the end of the day, what really matters, it doesn't matter whose fault it is. What matters is that it works for us.
Right. And I think it's both because we want to check to make sure the debug information from GCC is not slowing down GDB.
Yes.
And at the same time, we want to lend and help out the GDB folks to make sure they're not doing anything wrong.
Absolutely. So maybe there's some partnership that can happen there
Yeah,
as well.
there should be. That's what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. I will definitely think about, I haven't worked on the tool in a little while, and I wish I had the up-to-date version here. I expected to, and I'm looking and I don't have it. So it's very embarrassing, but I did have a tool. And to be fair, the code's really bad. I looked at the one on the wiki and I was like, oh, so this is how you write idiomatic scripts. Okay, not a block with some functions that's incomprehensible. So I want to refactor it before I show anyone. But anyway, yes, I hope to collaborate with them. I've spoken to Gwen, I've spoken to Pedro. Before the end of the conference, I'll definitely talk to them again as well. Is there anything else, or shall we go for lunch?
Well, or go over to another conference.
Oh, is it?
You only got a half hour.
Yes, but I think it's lunchtime now, isn't it?
The other folks got an hour. Yeah. So
Oh yeah, lunch starts at 12:30. Okay, never mind. Go over to another talk then. Thank you very much.
So everything at once instead of
I do have some of it working. Like I'm tracking the size of the object files, so deltas of that, and tracking time of bootstrapping the compiler. One of the things that isn't working, that I don't have any sources for yet, is actually benchmarking compiling of arbitrary programs. Because that's hard to find good programs to benchmark. I have a couple ideas.
You can use the same one as LLVM is using.
Pardon?
You can use the same programs that LLVM is using.
I can't. Or actually, I'm not sure which ones they're using. Yes,
They
so
come from LLVM test suite.
You can use LVM.
My good, yeah, I guess.
LVM is also going to be part of the next spec, so.
The next,
Spec sweep.
oh, okay, gotcha.
Not 17, but the next one.
So you just need to pick a number of programs
Yes.
and keep them fixed.
Yep, exactly.
Tramp 3D.
Yeah, okay. I'll have to, if anyone, I should have put my email here. I will.
You should also talk to Jan Hubaka, who runs the SUSE LTN.
LTN, would that be the CI that I was talking about?
I don't know which CI you're talking about.
They have.
There might be a separate one.
Mhm.
He runs an LTN instance. What? LNT. Yeah. Sorry.
That might be what I was talking about. I'm not sure.
So he does
yes.
the LNT GCC benchmarking.
I think that's what I was talking
Yeah.
about, possibly. So yeah, I do want to talk to him for
Jan
sure.
Hubaka runs that one.
The only problem is that does use spec, and
No, I'm not. I'm saying for the compile type. So there's one that says CPP.
yes.
That's all the C++ benchmarks.
Oh, and those are all open source and whatnot.
Pretty much they're all grabbed
Okay.
from the GCC Bugzilla. They
Oh.
even have PR numbers.
Okay.
Well, some of them.
Some of them.
Some of them are just some open source benchmarks.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Tramp 3D. Actually,
Yeah.
Tramp 3D would be Richie's original thing.
Okay.
That's how he got started.
This is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this talk, is so I can get all this extra information, because it was hard to research it and compile that into one thing. So yes, so my email is,
Somewhere.
I didn't put it in here, but it's waflix@baylibre.com. If anyone has, I really should have put that there, I didn't think of it. All ideas for next time. So if anyone comes up with anything, please do email me. I will include it into the project. And hopefully at some point, and maybe it's a pipe dream at this point, but I would like to get it in tree, where it's a compile time testing part of, like, where you can just use make, and like you're invoking the test suite, but instead you're invoking the compile time performance test suite instead. Because that would be very easy for end users, I think. The only problem, of course, is then we can't include all these other projects in the tree, I don't think, right?
Yeah.
That would be a bit crazy.
But I mean, it might be like a helper. I mean, we have these requisites for ideas, whatever download, and I mean, we could have something which then downloads the benchmark target for, then if it's available, then the make works, so something like that.
Yeah, okay, that could work. Okay, how do I stop being recorded? I'd like to sit down.